Allow me to impart a truth about the market that the majority of speculators will never grasp, regardless of the number of charts they pore over or the complexity of their mechanical indicators. I have amassed fortunes, and I have lost them. I have stood at the pinnacle of Wall Street with millions to my name, and I have clawed my way back from a zero balance more times than a prudent man would ever confess. Through it all, every bull run and every panic, I learned a single verity that distinguishes the professional operator from the common gambler. The market has no regard for your indicators, your charts, or your painstaking analysis. The market responds to only one force, and that force is the man in front of the screen. Your own mind, your emotional condition, your capacity for clear thought when all those around you are succumbing to hysteria. That is the sole determinant of whether you close your books with a profit or a loss. I am not speaking of some esoteric philosophy or the sort of positive thinking nonsense peddled in cheap pamphlets. I am referring to something far more tangible, immensely more powerful. I'm speaking of a method I perfected through years of costly education. A mental clearing that requires 3 minutes and has preserved more of my capital than any chart pattern or moving average ever could. You see, the trouble with most men who play the market is not that they lack knowledge. On the contrary, their problem is an excess of it. Their screens are cluttered with dozens of indicators, each one whispering a different story. The MACD suggests a buy. The RSI signals a sell. The Bollinger Bands are fluctuating wildly, and their minds are spinning, trying to reconcile the contradictions. All the while, the tape is moving and they remain frozen, unable to act, waiting for a perfect alignment of signals that will never materialize. I learned very early in my career that the human mind is not built for speculation. Consider our evolution. We were designed for survival in the wild, to react instantly to physical threats, to remember sources of danger and steer clear of them. These instincts were invaluable to our ancestors, but they are poison in the market. The market penalizes nearly every natural human impulse. It pays you for doing what feels fundamentally wrong and ruins you for doing what feels instinctively right. When a stock is in a free fall and the crowd is rushing for the exits, every fiber of your being screams to sell, to escape before it goes to zero. Yet that is frequently the very moment one should be buying. When a stock is soaring to the heavens and euphoria is rampant, your brain is flooded with the desire to jump in, not to miss the easy money. But that is precisely when one should be selling or standing aside. The market is a psychological battleground, and more often than not, your own mind is your most formidable adversary. This is why I formulated what I referred to as the 3-minute composure. It is not meditation, though it has elements in common. It is not positive affirmations or visualization, though those have their own utility. It is a systematic procedure for sweeping away the noise, the emotion, the bias, and returning to what I call the operator's state. The operator's state is one of calm alertness, of detached focus, ready to act, but patient enough to wait for the proper moment. It is the mental equivalent of a clean and orderly workspace. You would not attempt to build a fine watch on a desk littered with clutter. So why would you attempt to make precision trades with a cluttered mind? I discovered this technique through bitter experience. Back in 1907, I was flush with success. I had made a fortune selling the market short during the panic, and I felt I could not be wrong. My vanity had outgrown my judgment, which is saying a great deal. I entered the market each morning convinced of my own genius. Every profitable trade was a confirmation of my brilliance. Every loss was mere bad luck or the manipulation of unseen forces. I was no longer operating. I was gambling, certain that the rules did not apply to me. Then came a series of trades that delivered a lesson in humility like none before. I found myself on the wrong side of a corner in the cotton market. I held my positions far too long, convinced of my own correctness. Even as the tape screamed that I was wrong, I averaged down on losing trades, certain the market would eventually come to its senses and agree with me. Within weeks, a substantial portion of my gains had vanished. Not because my methods were flawed, but because my mind was clouded. My ego was at the helm and my vision was obscured. That is when I grasped a profound truth. The market does not care who you are or how intelligent you believe yourself to be. The market is unconcerned with your past victories or your reputation on the street. The market is utterly indifferent to you. It will do what it is going to do. Your sole duty is to read the tape accurately and respond with discipline. But that is impossible if your mind is filled with ego, fear, regret, or greed. Jesse Livermore, or Larry Livingston as he was known in print, consistently stressed that Wall Street extracts a heavy cost of instruction for every lesson learned the hard way. Fortunately, the core principles he developed to survive these expensive market penalties were captured for posterity by Edwin Lefebvre in the 1923 masterpiece, Reminiscences of a Stock Operator. It stands as the finest possible literary training ground, allowing you to absorb decades of painful operational experience without ever having to risk a dollar of your own capital. To ensure this timeless wisdom translates accurately to the modern, computerized arena, we advise seeking out the Max Davidson Annotated edition. Davidson's careful commentary is indispensable for bridging the gap between Livermore's era and ours. A link to this essential edition is provided in the description below. So, I began to experiment. I would step away from the trading floor, find a quiet corner, and attempt to clear my head. Initially, it was a struggle. My mind would race with thoughts of my positions, of money lost, of opportunities missed. But over time, I developed a process, a systematic method of resetting my mental state that I could perform anywhere, at any time, in just 3 minutes. The first step is what I call the inventory. You sit down, close your eyes if possible, and you take stock of every emotion you are feeling without judgment. Are you anxious about a position? Acknowledge it. Are you euphoric after a big win? Acknowledge it. Are you frustrated that you missed a move? Acknowledge it. The key is not to suppress these feelings or pretend they do not exist. That only grants them more power. Instead, you simply observe them as you would watch clouds drift across the sky. There is the anxiety. There is the greed. There is the fear. You name them. You recognize them. And then you simply allow them to be. Most men try to battle their emotions. They command themselves to be calm, to not be afraid, to be confident. But that is like trying to dam a river with your bare hands. It is futile. The pressure simply builds until it bursts forth in a moment of disastrous decision-making. Instead, you take inventory. You say, yes, I am feeling this and it is a natural human reaction, but it will not dictate my actions. The second step is the detachment. This is where you consciously create distance between your sense of self and your market positions. You remind yourself that you are not your trades. A losing trade does not make you a failure. A winning trade does not make you a genius. They are merely trades, points of data. The market moved in a certain direction, and you made a decision based on the available information. That is all. Nothing more, nothing less. This detachment is vital because most speculators become emotionally wedded to their positions. They fall in love with a stock or develop a personal vendetta against the market itself. I have seen men hold losing positions for months, watching their capital bleed away, simply because selling would be an admission of error. Their pride would not permit them to take the loss. I have done it myself more times than I care to recall. During this detachment phase, I literally imagine myself stepping back from the quotation board. In my mind's eye, I see myself walking away from my positions, from my account statement, from my profit and loss. I imagine viewing it all from a distance as if observing another man's account. This mental device creates emotional space. It allows for objective assessment. When you are too close to a situation, your perspective is skewed. You require distance, and the detachment phase provides it. The third and final step is what I call the reaffirmation. This is where you reconnect with your fundamental principles of operation, your rules, your strategy, not just on an intellectual level, but on an emotional one. You remind yourself why you have these rules. You recall the costly lessons that forged these principles. You visualize yourself operating according to your plan, following your system, maintaining discipline. For me, the reaffirmation involves returning to my core market beliefs. The trend is your companion until the end of the trend. Cut your losses short and let your profits run. The tape will tell you when you are wrong, if only you are willing to listen. These are not mere aphorisms. They are truths I learned through hard experience, truths that cost me fortunes to acquire. In the reaffirmation phase, I reconnect with these truths on a deep, visceral level. The entire process takes 3 minutes, perhaps 4 if you are particularly agitated. But its effect is profound. You shift from being reactive and emotional to being responsive and rational. Your mind clears, the noise subsides, and suddenly you can see the market for what it truly is, not what you hope it to be or fear it might become. You can see the actual price action, the actual trends, the actual signals, free from the distortion of your own emotions. Now here is the interesting part. Once I began practicing this reset with regularity, my trading was transformed. Not in a single day, but gradually and undeniably. I found myself making fewer impulsive trades. I ceased chasing stocks that had already made their big move. I became more patient, waiting for the proper setup instead of forcing trades out of boredom or anxiety. Most crucially, I started taking my losses much more quickly and holding my winners much longer. The market had not changed. It was the same chaotic, unpredictable force it had always been. But my relationship to it had changed. I stopped trying to conquer it or outwit it. I began to work with it, to flow with it, responding to what it was actually doing rather than what my hopes or fears dictated. And that made all the difference. Let me offer a concrete illustration. In 1909, I was watching Union Pacific. The stock had been in a powerful uptrend for months, and I had accumulated a significant long position. But then the character of the market began to shift. The volume started to diminish on the advances. The daily gains grew smaller. The stock was still making new highs, but only just barely. All my operator's instincts told me something was amiss, but I was reluctant to believe it. I had made handsome profits on this position, and my greed wanted more. One morning I felt that familiar tightness in my chest, the anxiety that arises when you know the right thing to do but are afraid to do it. Instead of ignoring it, as I might have in the past, I stepped away from my desk. I went into my private office, closed the door, and performed my 3-minute composure. I took inventory of my greed. I acknowledged my fear of missing out on further profits. I recognized my attachment to being proven correct about this stock. Then I detached. I visualized myself as an outside consultant, looking at the position objectively. And finally, I reaffirmed my principles. What do my rules dictate? When the character of the market changes, you must respect it. When volume dries up on new highs, be wary. When your intuition tells you something is wrong, listen. I opened my eyes, walked back to my desk, and sold half my position. Just like that. There was no drama, no internal struggle. The clarity was absolute. 2 days later, Union Pacific began to decline. Within a week, it had surrendered most of its recent gains. Because I had performed that reset, because I had cleared my mind and reconnected with my principles, I had saved myself from a substantial loss. More importantly, I had preserved my capital for the next genuine opportunity. That is the function of this reset. It does not predict the market. It offers no magical insight into the future. What it does is strip away all the psychological baggage that prevents you from seeing what is already there. The market is in constant communication. It is always sending signals through price action, volume, and trend. But most speculators cannot hear them because the noise inside their own heads is too loud. Think of it this way. Imagine trying to discern a quiet conversation in a crowded, boisterous room. You might catch a word here and there, but you miss the essence. Now, imagine that same conversation in a silent library. Suddenly, every word is perfectly clear. That is what the reset does. It quiets your mental room so you can hear what the tape is actually saying. The beauty of this technique is its simplicity. You require no special equipment. You need not go anywhere or do anything elaborate. You can do it at your desk, in your motor car, even in a washroom if that is the only privacy available. 3 minutes. That is all it takes to reset your mental state and restore clear thinking. But here is the condition, and it is important. Like any skill of value, this technique requires practice. The first few times you try it, you may not notice a dramatic difference. Your mind may wander. The emotions may not subside completely. That is to be expected. Your brain has spent years forming certain habits, certain ways of responding to stress and uncertainty. You will not overwrite that programming in a single 3-minute session. But if you practice it regularly, if you make it a daily ritual, something remarkable occurs. Your brain begins to learn the pattern. Eventually, the mere act of sitting down and closing your eyes can trigger the reset. Your mind knows what is coming and begins to calm itself automatically. The inventory phase becomes quicker. The detachment happens more easily. The reaffirmation feels natural and effortless. I began performing this reset multiple times a day, before the market opened, to clear away any overnight anxieties or preconceived notions. In the middle of the trading day, especially after a volatile move or a large trade, to reset my emotional equilibrium. After the market closed, I would do it one last time to process the day's events and prepare for the next. It became as natural as breathing, and just as essential. And here is something most traders never consider. The benefits extend far beyond making better trading decisions. This reset technique improves your overall mental health and well-being. Trading is a high-stress profession. It takes a toll on your nervous system, your sleep, your personal relationships. By regularly clearing away emotional residue, by creating a buffer between yourself and the constant pressure of the market, you become more resilient. You sleep better. You are more present with your family. You enjoy life more. I have known men who made a great deal of money but were utterly miserable. They were in a perpetual state of stress, worry, and emotional turmoil. They may have had profitable accounts, but they were paying for it with their health and happiness. That is not success. It is merely a different form of failure. The 3-minute Composure changed that for me. It allowed me to trade with intensity and focus when required, but then to release it when the market closed. I was no longer carrying my positions home in my head. I was no longer lying awake at night, replaying trades or worrying about the morning bell. I could be a fully engaged speculator during market hours, and a fully engaged human being the rest of the time. That balance, that ability to compartmentalize effectively, is worth more than any trading system or indicator. Now, I want to address something I know some of you are thinking. You are wondering if this is truly necessary. You are thinking, this may work for others, but I am different. I can handle the pressure. I do not get emotional about my trades. Allow me to tell you with absolute certainty, you are deceiving yourself. Every speculator is emotional. Every single one. The difference between the consistently successful and the unsuccessful is not that the successful feel no emotion. It is that they have learned to manage those emotions, to work with them rather than be controlled by them. I learned this lesson in the most painful way imaginable. There was a time in my life when I thought I was beyond all this psychological business. I had been trading for years. I had made millions. I considered myself a master of the game. And then, in 1917, I lost everything. Not because the market's nature changed, not because my methods ceased to work, but because I stopped managing my own mental state. I grew complacent. I neglected the very disciplines that had brought me success. I allowed my ego to run rampant, and my ego led me straight to bankruptcy. Sitting in that hotel room with practically nothing to my name, I had a profound realization. The market is a mirror. It reflects back to you whatever you bring to it. If you bring fear, it will provide you with more reasons to be fearful. If you bring greed, it will tempt you into ruinous decisions. If you bring ego, it will humble you. But if you bring clarity, discipline, and emotional equilibrium, it will reward you. Not every time, not on every trade, but consistently over the long run. That was when I swore to never again neglect my mental preparation. The 3-minute composure became non-negotiable. Come rain or shine, in victory or defeat, I did it. And slowly, painstakingly, I rebuilt my fortune. But more than that, I rebuilt my relationship with the market. I rediscovered the satisfaction of reading the tape correctly, of executing a plan flawlessly, of remaining patient when patience was called for, and acting decisively when the moment for action arrived. Here is what I need you to understand. This reset is not a magic formula. It will not make you instantly profitable if you do not possess a sound trading strategy. It will not compensate for a fundamental lack of knowledge about how markets operate. What it will do is allow you to maximize whatever skills you already possess. If you are a decent trader with sound strategies but inconsistent results, this reset can make you consistent. If you are a good trader who suffers occasional catastrophic losses due to emotional decisions, this reset can prevent those disasters. If you are a great trader who aspires to become one of the elite, this reset can provide that crucial edge. The greatest operators in the world are not those with the most complex systems or the most advanced technology. They are the ones with the most superior psychological control. They are the ones who can remain calm amidst chaos, patient when opportunity is scarce, and disciplined in the face of temptation. They are the ones who have mastered themselves before attempting to master the market. And that mastery begins with something as simple as a 3-minute mental reset. I am going to tell you precisely how to perform this, step by step, so you can begin implementing it immediately. But first, you must make a commitment. Do not try this once and expect a miracle. Do not do it for a week and then abandon it because you do not see immediate results. Commit to performing this reset at least twice a day for 30 days. Once in the morning before you trade and once in the evening after you are done. That is it. 60 resets over 30 days. Give it that chance, and I promise you will notice a difference. Here is the complete process. Find a quiet place where you will not be disturbed for 3 to 4 minutes. Sit in a comfortable chair, feet flat on the floor, hands resting in your lap. Close your eyes or lower your gaze. Take 3 slow, deep breaths, in through your nose and out through your mouth. For these first 3 breaths, focus only on your breathing. This signals to your body that you are shifting from a state of action to a state of reflection. Now, begin the inventory phase. Mentally scan your internal environment. What emotions are present? Do not judge them or try to alter them. Simply notice them. Are you feeling anxious? Say to yourself, I notice anxiety. Are you excited? I notice excitement. Are you frustrated, angry, greedy, fearful, confident, arrogant? Whatever it may be, acknowledge its presence. Spend approximately 60 seconds on this. You are not trying to intensify these feelings or make them disappear. You are simply observing them, like a scientist observing data. Next, move into the detachment phase. Visualize yourself stepping back from your trading station. In your mind's eye, see yourself from a distance, as if you were watching yourself on a motion picture screen. See your positions, your charts, your account balance, all of it. But see it from this observer's perspective. Say to yourself, these are just trades. They do not define who I am. I am separate from my results. A winning trade does not make me a winner, and a losing trade does not make me a loser. I am simply an operator executing a strategy. Spend about 60 to 90 seconds here, truly feeling that separation, that emotional distance. Finally, enter the reaffirmation phase. Bring to mind your core trading principles, whatever they may be for you. For me, it is concepts like respect the trend, cut losses quickly, let winners run. The market is always right. Trade your plan, not your emotions. Contemplate these principles not merely as words, but as lived truths. Recall a time when adhering to them saved you or made you money. Recall a time when ignoring them cost you dearly. Feel the wisdom embedded in these principles. Commit to honoring them in your next trading session. Spend the final 60 to 90 seconds here. Then take 3 more deep breaths. Open your eyes and return to your trading or to your day. The entire process takes 3 minutes, maybe 4 as you are learning it. But the clarity it brings, the emotional balance it restores, is worth infinitely more than the time it takes. I have given you something today that took me decades to develop and perfect. A tool that has saved me more money than I can calculate and prevented more disasters than I can count. But a tool is useless unless it is used. Knowledge without application is merely a form of entertainment. So here is my challenge to you. Begin today, right now. After this concludes, perform your first 3-minute composure. Do not wait for the perfect moment or until you feel overwhelmed by emotion. Simply do it. Make it a practice, not a reaction to a crisis. And remember, the market will always be there. It has been here for centuries, and it will be here long after we are gone. But your time, your capital, and your mental fortitude, these are finite resources. Protect them. Invest in them. Master your own mind, and mastery of the market will follow. I want you to leave a comment below telling me what emotions you inventoried during your first reset. Share your experience with this community. And if you found this valuable, go watch the other videos on our channel, where I share more hard-won lessons from my years on the street. These are not theories or academic ideas. This is wisdom paid for by triumph and disaster, through millions made and lost. Every video contains insights that can save you years of painful learning. The greatest speculator is not the one who makes the most money on a single trade. It is the one who remains in the game long enough to compound his edge day after day, year after year. And you cannot remain in the game if your own mind is working against you. Master this reset. Make it as automatic as breathing. And watch what happens to your trading, your results, and your life. The market is waiting. But more importantly, the best version of yourself as a trader is waiting. The version that operates with clarity, discipline, and emotional balance. That version is already within you. The 3-minute composure is simply the key that unlocks the door. Now, go and use it.